Okay, so hopefully this nuke is alive and well. I haven't looked in it in a long time. It could be dead, which is a learning experience too. We'll talk about that if that's the case. So you always have your smoker going before you go into any kind of colony of honeybees, no matter what size it is. And if it's a nuke like this that's been down for a while, they may have glued the top down tight with propolis or burr comb. Okay. So this was a nuke that's been here since late last year, I think.
So
It
what
actually made it through winter.
Do to it? It just
The smoke interferes with their ability to communicate alarm. Okay.
So that's why
They use pheromones to communicate, and they dance to communicate. They probably communicate in ways we don't even understand yet. But all right, so you know you gotta take care to try to free things up a little bit before you start moving them around, because you don't want to mash too many bees.
Is that hive or is that the propolis?
This right here,
yeah.
That's burr comb. That's wax that they have built up on top of the frame. Okay, and before you put this in a hive, you'd probably want to scrape that off, because otherwise it wouldn't fit and allow you to close the lid. See how there's headroom above the frame in the nuke? There's not going to be that much headroom above the frame in your hive unless it's an odd configuration. Okay, and then lift out gently one of the combs. Okay, so this a nuke box is not a particularly good thing to winter a hive in, because it doesn't have much insulation. This is very old comb, okay, which is, oh look, we're going to talk about bee pests. There's a small hive beetle right there. See that?
Yeah. There's a what?
Small hive beetle hiding out in that cell right there.
in that hole there.
What do
It'll
the bees
come out
do
here.
about them? Anything, or just?
Yeah, they'll try to pin them up. They make little propolis traps. See, there's another one. And we put beetle begone in our hives because that ensnares them. It's got fibers the right size to catch the spurs. So there's hive beetle there.
Oh, I see.
See him down in there? In fact, let's.
Must be pretty small.
Yeah, he's pretty little.
Yeah, we'll come back to this comb in a minute, and I'll shake the hive beetles out on the table. We'll have a better look at them then. Anyway, as I was about to say, you don't really ideally want to overwinter your colony in something like this, because there's very little insulation in this, right? So they had a hard time making it through winter, I'm sure. And once they start rearing brood, they've got to keep the brood nest really warm, 91 degrees Fahrenheit. And they burn through a lot of honey. Okay, now this is a nice comb, which again has one of these beetle traps. Let's see, do we have, I'm sure we've got beetles ensnared in it. Now what was that? Does anybody know? That was a wax moth larva. It'll crawl back out of there in a minute. Wax moths will never kill your hive. However, if your hive is already dead or dying, they'll come in and eat the wax. Okay, so this has got sealed brood on it, okay? And that's what that is. Now that is where the growing, developing bee is undergoing metamorphosis, right? It's being transformed from
And you can tell it's brood because it's dark.
larval stage to
Sealed over.
pupa. So it's adopting the adult form or morphology, right? So the bees are really clinging tightly to the brood surface, right? Because again, they're trying to keep it warm. Now what are those little white caterpillars right there in the middle? Those are larvae, right? Those are older larvae. Now I'm going to pass this comb around, all right? I want you to grasp it like I do, okay? So use the top bar out here to support it, right? Use your middle finger and thumb on the end bars to roll it back and forth. You want to be where you can change the angle of this and get sunlight, if you're lucky enough to have sunlight, down in the bottom of the cell. Makes it a lot easier to see brood. You comfortable holding it? If you get stung on the finger, try not to drop the frame. However, if you do drop the frame, don't panic. Just step back and let the bees slowly crawl back up on the comb, okay? All right, so one thing I can observe about this nuke is that it's got a lot of bees and brood in it for not having been fed or anything along the way, but it doesn't have any reserve resources at all. There's no honey here, right?
Well,
And
that's
so-
a plastic one.
That's
So
a
you
plastic
just
frame.
had this sitting out here, huh?
Huh?
It's just been sitting.
This has been sitting out here. So it's been making a living, but it hadn't been
Yeah.
making honey, okay?
But they
Just
survived.
barely making a living. They survived, but not much more than that. I mean, they really didn't have breakfast this morning. They're so light. They also haven't stored much pollen. There's a little pollen stored right there. You see the multicolored pollen? When I pass this come around? Orange, yellow, red. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Okay? You comfortable grabbing it?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Got it?
Got it.
All right. So what can we do for this newt to make it better? Make it, that's right. It needs some feed. All right, now what do we got there? What do I see crawling across the face of this comb? It's not a bee pest.
Oh.
It's a queen. Yeah. See the queen?
She's much bigger.
Oh,
isn't she?
yeah,
See her?
definitely.
Come on over. Come on over.
Fred, look, there's a queen on that one.
See the queen?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Take it. Does she have a mark or no?
Pardon me?
She has a mark or no?
No, she doesn't.
No, she.
And we're passing all these combs around, so you can pass, we'll pass this around. Try not to lose the queen though. She's obviously the most important bee in the hive.
Is it harder to tell the difference between the worker and the drone?
No, drones are easy to find. Now we don't see any drones in this colony. I'll tell you that we haven't. You got to trust me on that, because you haven't seen one yet. But there are no drones in this hive. Why would there be no drones in this
Because
hive?
they can't get out.
So you don't want them to lay eggs or to fertilize the eggs, I guess.
You know a little bit about bee biology. Yeah, the drones are odd in that they're haploid and they develop from unfertilized eggs, right? So they're really just like flying gametes. But the colony doesn't rear drones unless it's in reproductive mode, right? And when you've got a colony like this that is on the brink of starvation, they're not going to be rearing drones because drones are incapable of doing anything to contribute to the resource base of the colony. They're just another mouth to feed, right? And this colony's not about to swarm, so it doesn't need drones. It doesn't feel like it's ready to reproduce, right? So what is this indicative of? Okay, this colony's been out here on its own. It's survived winter, but it hasn't done much more than survive. What do we know about the environment now? Having looked in only one colony of honeybees, what can we can make an observation that'll probably hold true about the other colonies that we see out here. The honey flow has not started.
Yeah.
Okay? Now why is that? A variety of things going on. But it's a peculiar spring. And yes, we've had rain. And we haven't had as much rain as we did last year, which was a problem. But for some reason, and it may have something to do with climate change, the sequence of blooms in the trees that the bees forage a lot for pollen and nectar has been kind of out of whack this year. And all the trees that the bees typically rely upon for forage for the past for 2 months in the springtime all bloomed over about a 3-week interval earlier than normal. And so they had an abundance of resources
Yeah,
early on,
they're all cooling her up.
and then suddenly they didn't have anything. And so they're waiting for the next big thing to happen, and it has yet to happen. So would you like for me to show you how to feed a hive, or you want to move on to other colonies and we'll come back and feed this one at the end?
Feed it while we're here.
Yeah, got it.
Either way.
Yeah,
I have to go down and grab some syrup real quick. Would you bear with me while I do that?
sure.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys stare at some hive beetles while we're doing that.
That's the one that has the queen on it.
Right. Uh-huh. Just making
So
sure
if
we
they
get.
start making drones, does that mean your queen needs to be replaced?
Well, it can mean that your queen needs to be replaced if she's a drone layer and laying nothing but drones. However, big strong colonies in the springtime, if you see drones in them, it just means they're a big strong colony.
Okay.
It means your queen's really good.
So you just
So like many other things in beekeeping, you got to be careful about hard and fast rules, okay? All right, so I'm going to take this comb out. My colony does not need this comb. There's nothing in it.
it doesn't hurt to move the queen like you did off the one tray.
No, off the one comb. You just got to handle her gently, not mash her, obviously. Okay, so we're going to... Let's see, I need a flat surface. I don't... Over by that rock, maybe. Look around, see. I don't have my pickup backed up here. I do it on the tailgate of my pickup. I'm trying to show you some small hive beetles.
Oh.
Okay, follow me over here. Oh, wait a minute, one came out on the lid. See?
Oh, yeah.
That one.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, they're bigger than I thought.
The bees attacking them. Or look like
See
it
it,
was.
babe?
Sometimes they will.
Can you see it, Dion?
Anyway, that's a bad,
It's
that's
just
bad
little
news
black-
bears, right? You
black
got to get rid
bugs.
of those things. They are not good.
But, and that thing y'all sell, that works on them, huh?
It does.
Is that
If the
one
bees chew it up. Yeah, there's probably, yeah.
A couple of them
You
there.
see 'em?
Yes.
There's one right there.
All right. So here's another one. Just banging
And
out
they
here on-
eat the honey? Or they...
Oops, excuse me, sorry. All right, so I got to get a feeder, and then I got to
So
go
is
grab
that
some
those-
syrup.
Is that their only function in nature, that beetle? I mean, is that they eat anything else, or they just...
Yeah, they'll live, unfortunately, they live on rotting vegetation as well as in beehives. So once they're in a place, they're just endemic. They're